Hey, welcome to another episode of Roger's Tech Talk. In this video, we're going to walk through the detailed configuration, setting up your Amcrest AD410 doorbell, Home Assistant, and GoRTC. This will now allow you to do two-way audio and to send audio alerts through your doorbell. Let's get started. So step one is to create an SSL certificate for both the Home Assistant website and the Go2RTC website. So you would normally do this by using, let's say, GoDaddy, or in the case of a lot of Home Assistant users, Let's Encrypt to create a free SSL certificate for your solution. Now, the thing about Let's Encrypt is that is a publicly trusted TLS certificate. We don't need that really. So Home Assistant and GoTC can just be accessed from your local network. And in the case of what I'm going to be showing you, we're going to be creating a root certificate and an individual server certificate for both of them. And this will allow the certificates that we do to be trusted on any device that we load that root certificate on. So let's get started. So to get started, the easiest way to create our root certificate and our TLS certificates for Home Assistant GoRTC is to use MKCert. So this is basically using most likely OpenSSL behind the scenes, but instead of having to figure out what all the different arguments are to create your root certificate, individual server certificates for what we're trying to do, this software just makes it super easy. So the first command we're going to type in is mkcert-install, and this is going to create the root certificate that the individual server certificates we're going to be based on, and also it's going to install it on your computer's root certificate store. So I'm on Windows, and if we load up the certificate MMC and we go to Trusted Root Certificate Authorities Certificates, after I run this command, it created a root certificate called Roger-Desktop. So by default, it just creates the root certificate based on the host name of your computer. So once we do that, we can go back. So basically, we just have to download the software. We can put it in a folder, and whatever the name of the executable is, we're typing that in. And in the first case, we're doing the dash install. I already did that, so I'm not going to do it again. Once we do that, we can create the individual server certificates that we need. So I definitely recommend to create a wildcard certificate. So this will allow things, for example, in my case, I'm using HomeAssistant.Roger.Local and GoRTC.Roger.Local. So I'm just going to do a quick example here. Let's say example1.com with that asterisk, and that will allow for the wildcard. And then it's going to create our certificates. So if we go to the folder where I have the MKCert executable, we can see here that these are the wildcard certificates that I initially created that I'm using in my deployment. These are the .pem, the server certificate, and the private key associated with that certificate for the example1.com that I just created. The next step is to get the certificate and the private key onto your Home Assistant installation. And now a word from our sponsor, TurboDocs. This video is sponsored by TurboDocs. Are you tired of building documents or presentations for your business? Wouldn't it be great if there was something you could help automate building proposals, design documents, or even legal agreements? TurboDocs is a document and slide deck templating platform that can help you make documents in just a few clicks.
What they do is break down the template into small building blocks that can be reused over and over again. This really gives you a great starting point to move quickly and efficiently. When it's all said and done, you can crank out a proposal or any other document in under a minute. This way you can focus on what you're doing best, building cool stuff, and leave the paperwork and presentations to TurboDocs.
So the easiest way to do this is to SSH to your Home Assistant server. We're going to browse to our SSL folder here, which is user/share/hash/SSL. So I'm using a supervised installation of Home Assistant on Ubuntu. So what we can do is we can just type sudo pico, and we're basically just going to copy and paste our certificates that we created. So I can take my certificate file here to example1.pem, type my password in, And I can just basically paste that certificate, do Control X, Y, and that way I can easily get my certificate up on here. So that's an easy way. You can also just copy it over any way you have, but basically we just need to get it into our SSL folder on Home Assistant. To allow us to access the Home Assistant and GoTRTC website using our certificate, we're going to need to install the NGINX add-on for the Home Assistant store. So you can just go to add-ons, add-on store, search for it, and install it. I already have mine installed. Once it's installed, we're going to go to configuration, and you're going to change the default certificate file and private key file that NGINX is going to be using. So this is step one to allow Home Assistant to be accessed with our TLS certificates. So if we go back to the SSL folder here, you can see my roger-local.key and roger-local.pem. This is the wildcard certificate that I created that I'm going to be using for both accessing Home Assistant and the GoRTC website. They're in the SSL folder. So all I need to do is put the file names here. This is also the domain that I will be accessing Home Assistant for. So .local, of course, is not a real DNS suffix that's available on the internet. So I just configured this on my home router to point to the IP address of my Home Assistant installation. And what NGINX is doing is using SNI, server name indication. So if it sees a request with that host name, it knows to where to actually send that request to. So in the case of this, it's NGINX is listening on port 443 and then actually redirecting to port 8123 internally on the server. So once you have this configured, you should be able to go to your Home Assistant installation with the TLS certificate that you have configured. So if I go here, I go connection is secure, certificate is valid, and you can see here that this is not just a self-signed certificate. This is a server certificate that is created from a root certificate. And that's what that -install command did at the beginning. So that root certificate is roger-desktop, and then we have our server certificate for Home Assistant. So the next step is, once we have Home Assistant configured with our TLS certificate, is to allow the GoRTC website to also be accessed with securely with a TLS certificate. If we don't do this, two-way audio is not going to work. So normally, if you go to the GoRTC website through your Home Assistant installation, it's going to look something like this. Well, it's going to work. Oh, two-way audio there. Let's paste the URL out. So it's going to be this long thing, and this is basically only a URL that's going to work for your instance in your computer here. If we try to use this on another computer, it's not going to work. So this is not something that we can put on a dashboard, for example, to allow two-way audio from multiple computers inside your house, multiple tablets. We need to access the GoRTC website directly. So GoRTC, when we run it, you can access the website if you're running it as as an add-on, not add-on, but another Docker container on your Home Assistant installation. By default, it's going to run on port 1984. So if you go to your Home Assistant installation, once it's installed, and go to port 1984, you'll see the GoToRTC website. So we can see here this front doorbell 2. This is the doorbell configuration that I have set to allow two-way audio of my Amcrest AD410. And you can see if I'm accessing this not securely, I'm not able to use the microphone on my computer that I'm accessing it from to allow for two-way audio. We can notice the difference if we do go to it with what I have this configured, and I'll show you how I have this set up in a second. GoRTC.roger.local, and I click on the same website. We're getting some echo because I actually have the doorbell right here connected via USB. We have the microphone available in the browser. Bad echo. So how do we get this actually configured? If we go back to the NGINX configuration on Home Assistant, we see this line here. This is basically saying any other servers that we want to leverage NGINX for to front end as a reverse proxy. If we create a .conf file in this folder, then we can allow NGINX to not only front end Home Assistant, but allow other services. So that's what we're going to do for GoRTC. So to find where this folder is a bit fun, but in my installation, it is located in user share, hasio, share, NGINX proxy. So if I cd to that directory, I already created the .conf file, but basically you would do something such as sudo pico, basically opening up the Linux text editor and creating the file. So I'm just going to use the pico command to look at this file, and I'll post this file on my GitHub, so you don't have to worry about reading off the YouTube video and configuring this on. But let's walk through it real quick. So the first off here is it's using, like I mentioned earlier, server name indication to say, hey, if I see a request for GoRTC.Roger.Local, I'm not going to send it to the main Home Assistant website. I'm going to send it to the GoRTC website. So what's down here is this is just actually a built-in DNS name Home Assistant has to redirect to itself. And then the GoRTC service is running on port 1984. Also really important is specifying the SSL certificates. So if you remember, I created a wildcard certificate so I can leverage anything .roger.local with that certificate. So I just have to specify that same certificate that I did on the NGINX add-on screen. So once you create this file in the folder, I'm just simply going to have to restart the NGINX add-on. The way I have this configured is I'm leveraging pfSense as my home router. I basically have GoRTC.Roger.Local and HomeAssistant.Roger.Local pointing to the IP address of my Home Assistant installation, which is 192.168.4.18. And then NGINX is taking care of redirecting to either Home Assistant or the GoRTC website based on that host name that's typed in. So to allow for the configuration that I showed off in my last video, showing all this in action, we have to create a go2rtc.yaml file inside our Home Assistant configuration file. So the easiest way to do this is you have Visual Studio Code installed, is just to go to your configuration folder, right click, and where is it? Just go there and basically we're just creating a new file. So I already have the file created. So in here, the important thing is we're creating two different entries for our Amcrest AD410 doorbell to leverage by GoRTC. This first one here is the doorbell feed without the back channel enabled. The back channel is what allows two-way audio to work. So there's going to be, if you remember from the last video, a video feed from the doorbell that we can only hear audio from the doorbell itself, not actually have that two-way audio. So that's important that we have one set for that. Basically, we're just adding this pound back channel equals 0 at the end of the RTSP URL. And then in my case, I just have front doorbell 2. This does not have it on. And this is the stream that I'm going to be using for my two-way audio. So once this is done, this file is created, you basically just go back to your GoRTC add-on, which is right here. I haven't updated to the latest version. We're just going to restart it and then go from there. So you can see here in my GoRTC configuration, once you add those two entries in there, you'll see front doorbell and front doorbell 2. Now, since we're all on my secure configuration here, you can see if I go to two-way audio, and this is the WebRTC feed, so this is the real-time video feed. I get the access to use the microphone, but since I have that back channel disabled, the microphone is not going to work. I'll be able to hear audio from the doorbell itself, but not be able to talk to it yet. You can see here, actually, at the moment, the audio icon down there is grayed out, and we'll fix that in a second, and I'll show you how. But if we go to front doorbell to two-way audio, we'll get a little echo here. The audio button is still grayed out because we haven't fixed that. But you can hear the echo from the doorbell I actually have right here. And that's some video that I'm talking through coming through the doorbell because the back channel is enabled. Okay. So how do we fix that audio button to actually hear audio from the doorbell on the computer? How do we fix that? And that goes to something I talked about in my last video, that WebRTC, which is the page rundown, the technology for that real-time video for our browser of that RTSP feed. By default, the Amcrest doorbell is using an audio codec that WebRTC doesn't support. So we need to go use the we have to use the Amcrest Doorbell API. We just have to send a GET request to change the audio codec on the doorbell. And once we do that, this will not be great. We won't be able to hear audio from the doorbell itself. So let's do that now. The easiest way to do that, like I said, is to use this. So I'll put the exact URL on my GitHub page, so don't worry about hopping it down. So it's the IP address of my doorbell, 192.168.4.51. And this is basically saying the audio compression codec, we're doing it to G711A. And this is a supported audio format for WebRTC. So this will allow the doorbell to send an audio feed that WebRTC understands. We'll be able to hear the audio from the doorbell. So once I do that, I'm already authenticated to the doorbell recently. If I didn't, a little login box will come up and we'd have to type in our username and password for the doorbell. But once I've done that, let's come here and refresh this. And you can see it's no longer grayed out. It's muted, which is something else we'll talk about, but it's no longer grayed out. And I can actually hear the audio from the doorbell here once we did that. So that's a really important step. If you don't do that, two-way audio is not going to work. You're not going to be able to hear the person on the other end. And same thing for sending audio alerts too. Once you send the audio alert, you're not going to be able to hear, what the person says back if they're talking. So very, very important to do. So next, one of the really fun parts comes in is that the way we would normally present the doorbell audio and video feed on a Home Assistant dashboard will not work with two-way audio. So this is my main Home Assistant dashboard for hearing and seeing the video doorbell. And I'm basically leveraging the Frigate card inside Home Assistant. And I'm specifying the camera entry. This camera entry here is the doorbell configuration for the back channel disabled. So basically just audio and audio from the doorbell I can actually hear, and then the video feed itself. So if I were to put in the other one with the back channel, I would not be able to actually use the microphone and talk back. So what we need to do is, instead of using the Frigate card for any dashboard that you want to have two-way audio for inside Home Assistant, we have to use an iframe card. So this iframe is going to load that Go2RTC website inside your Home Assistant dashboard to allow for that two-way audio to work. So the next gotcha is we're actually just going to switch over to another, where is it? Nope. There, oh no. So here. So many things I can't remember sometime. Okay. Here we go. So I have a iframe card. And to start off with, I'll show you why just going to the GoRTC website directly is actually not going to work. So If I type in GoRTC.Roger.Local, and this is basically going to that WebRTC .html page for front doorbell 2, and this is that doorbell entry with the back channel enabled to allow for two-way audio. If I do that, what's going to happen is that my microphone is not going to be enabled by default. So there's going to be a prompt that's actually going to come up, if it even comes up. So this is basically not something we want to do. So let's say on this page, refreshed it, and I'm not actually getting any prompts up here to actually do two-way audio. We don't see what we did before for the microphone being picked up on the browser. So to fix this, somebody on the Home Assistant forums came up with a great idea of, instead of going directly to the GoRTC website inside the iframe, they created a website, a page inside Home Assistant that loads the GoRTC website with specific settings on the iframe to automatically enable the microphone to be enabled. So it's actually really easy to set up, but I'll show you. So we're basically going back to Visual Studio Code, and I am going to go to my www folder, and I created a page called Go2.html, and I'll put this code on the GitHub also. So basically what this is doing is this is loading up the GoRTC website, the WebRTC page for the doorbell that has the back channel enabled, and it's allowing the microphone to automatically be enabled. So we don't have to click anything, and it will allow it to function. So what we need to do is, in our Home Assistant dashboard, test feed. We got to go back to our iframe setting. Instead of going directly to the GoRTC website, we need to go to our Home Assistant URL /local. So this is basically files that are inside that www folder /go2.html. This in turn loads up the GoRTC website in an iframe. So it's an iframe inside of an iframe. Once we do that, we can see that the icon comes up here that our microphone is automatically enabled, and this will allow for seamless two-way audio. The only thing that I haven't been able to figure out and get around is that, you can actually see, there I am, is that the audio for hearing the other person is going to be disabled by default. In the Frigate card, there is a setting to automatically unmute the video feed once it starts. I wasn't able to figure out a way leveraging an iframe. Maybe somebody else figured it out though. Okay, so now on to the fun part, sending audio alerts for the Amcrest AD410 doorbell. So the first thing you're going to need to do is record the audio alert that you want to send for the doorbell. I did mine using Audacity, which is actually what I'm filming, recording this podcast in right now. So I created a file called getoutofhere.wave. So there probably is a limit on how long this file can be. I'm not completely sure. Mine is only about 4 seconds long, so just keep that in mind. So what I'm doing is recording the audio alert, and then we're going to use software called SOCKS. You can also use FFmpeg, but I'm just using this as an example. So you can basically go to the website. You can download the software. I already did. I downloaded the zip file. And so I'm in the folder here right now with the SOX software. And I'm also just putting my audio file in the same folder here. So then what you're going to do is you're going to open up Windows Shell, and you're just going to do sox.exe. And basically we're taking that wave file and we're changing the frequency of it to something that the audio, that the doorbell can actually play back audio-wise. So we're putting in our input, our wave file, and then we're outputting a different file. And this is the file here that we'll be uploading to Home Assistant. So once we do that, we can see it created our new file. And next, let's upload it to Home Assistant. So if you log into your Home Assistant website, you can go to your file editor, and we're going to upload the file to our uploads folder. So I'm going to go to upload. I already have some MP3s that I have in my working installation, but we're going to upload this new file here. So I'm browsing to my file, get out of here.al. And then it is right there. Okay. So that's the next step. Make sure you get your file uploaded, that you converted to the right format so the doorbell can actually play it. So the next parts involve creating a bash script that will allow Home Assistant to send an HTTP request to the doorbell, basically taking that audio file, uploading it, and allowing it to play. Additionally, we're going to have to create scripts and a shell command on Home Assistant. So let's walk through those items now. So the first step is we're going to create a bash script that's going to send this audio alert to Home Assistant. So easiest way to do this is open up Visual Studio Code, go in the main configuration folder here. I'm going to call mine go-away-test. Great. So the big gotcha that I found out when doing this is that if we do not have, and I'll be posting this command in GitHub. If I don't have this portion at the end, what's going to happen is it's going to run successfully the first time, but then it's going to hang. So what this bottom portion does is this basically runs this command as a background request, and then this is grabbing the ID of that command and then killing it after 6 seconds. So if we don't have this, it might run right the first time, but it's not going to run the second time. The only way to actually recover that and try again is to reset the power on your doorbell, or by rebooting it. So it's really important. So let's see what's going on here. We're basically running the curl command, and we're basically setting the frequency of the audio file. This is the important part here. So if you remember, we uploaded the file to the upload folder in Home Assistant. So this is basically, since this bash script is located one directory back, we're going one directory forward. So the upload, and then get out of here.al, and this is just telling the audio type also too here. And then right here, we have our username for the doorbell, which by default is admin. My password is viewer1234. This is the IP address of my doorbell. And this is the rest of the URL basically for the first channel posting the audio. So the next step is we're going to need to create our script and shell command in our Home Assistant configuration file. So going over to the Home Assistant configuration file, underneath our shell command, what we need to do is define that bash script that we created. I already have the ones here for my working installation, so I'm creating a new one here called Doorbell _audio alert test. And then we type in bash, and this is the file that we just created in the root of the configuration folder. So the next step is to go to your scripts.yaml file, also in the configuration, in the config folder here. And I already have these for my working installation. We're going to create another one. Now, the reason why we have to create a script is that we can't call that bash command directly from a button, from what I understand. So we're basically creating a script that calls the shell command as a service. So the script is called Doorbell Audio Alert Test, and then it's calling the shell command that we just created. So once all these items are done, we're just gonna restart Home Assistant just to make sure everything is picked up. Okay, once Home Assistant is back online, I'm going to modify what I have working in production here. So basically in my configuration, I have a dashboard with different buttons that show up on Android tablets throughout my house with the different audio alerts that I can send through. So I'm just gonna modify this top one here. So this right here is this first button. So, actually, yeah, already had it saved in there from testing this before I started the video. So we have used the autocomplete here. We can see script, audio, alert, test, and this is that script that we created in the services.yaml file. So once we define that there, click save. Once we hit this button, it will call the bash script to send the audio alert to our doorbell. So I actually have the doorbell plugged into to USB right here. So I'm gonna run this through and hopefully everybody will be able to hear it.
Who the heck are you? Get out of here.
So as I said, who the heck are you? Get out of here. So we'll play it again to make sure this actually works good.
Who the heck are you? Get out of here.
So yeah, so if we didn't, like I said, if we didn't put those extra commands in our bash script, it would run first correctly the first time, then it basically wouldn't run again, and we would be screwed. So that's basically it to get the audio alerts sent through. And as you can see here, you know, for every different audio alert you want to have, you're going to create different shell commands, different services in the scripts. And you're going to have to create different bash files and, of course, different audio files for all those. But overall, not too bad. Hope it's helpful for everybody and everybody gets their audio. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks again, and stay tuned for the next video.